Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
All right, so let's see if anyone shows up. It's an early service today. Let's see who we got. Hello. Is anyone out there? Hello. Thank you for tuning in. I threw a little monkey wrench into the works by changing the time today, but it's Jay's birthday, so want to give him the day off. And then so I said, yeah, I'll do a talk. And then I realized that my wife has a Christmas concert. She plays handbells, and that's at 2:00 Eastern time, which is when service was. And so I was like, ah. And so we flipped it so I could do both. I can do both. So it's gonna say on my tombstone. Here lies Josh Murray. He tried to do everything. Oh boy. So it might just be me and you. I might just be giving a talk to you, my friend. Happy Jay's birthday to everyone. So this talk, when I get started, we'll let people trickle in, hopefully, due to the change in time. We'll give them a little bit, but normally I'm cutting it close with figuring out my talk and giving it. And now, like, I didn't even like finish my talk. Like, my later notes are just bullet points that are just saying like talk on this, but I have no idea what I'm doing because I robbed myself of 2 hours by making this earlier. So although I would think that me and your children have a birthday closer to Jesus than Jay does. So yeah, so it'll be half plans, half stream of consciousness. I was telling Jay as I was planning this, and I'll go into it obviously, but I think the book of Ecclesiastes is to me what Galatians is to Jay. Like, whenever I read it, I was like, this is the greatest. This is the book of all books. So I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know what that says about me, but it's like my favorite. Every time I read it, I'm like, but it is slightly depressing because it says like nothing, there's nothing new under the sun, and then you're reading it and it's talking about like rich people exploiting poor people and good people dying young and wicked people living on. You're like, oh no, nothing has changed ever. So yeah, Jay's it's his birthday today, so we're giving him the week off, and I'm gonna do my best to tackle some issues that are close to me, and I feel sadly have been getting closer to people around me. So we'll be talking about grieving and death, and yeah, the book of Ecclesiastes. Yeah, and just so everyone knows, C.S. Lewis did write a lot about the grief and loss process, and C.S. Lewis knows infinitely more than I do. So I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna be speaking from personal experience, but yeah, no, it's a deep topic, and much smarter people have discussed it more than I have. But I feel like today we'll get like maybe a little bit more real than others allow themselves to, because I don't have any sort of name or agenda. I just want, to talk about it and help people heal. So I don't know too much C.S. Lewis stuff outside of like was it Narnia, the Screw Tape Letters, Mere Christianity, which I have never really gotten into. I do so miserable with nonfiction. It's just I don't know. It's something I wish I could change, but I need like plot and I need it to be moving somewhere, and I just feel like it's a big weakness for me to like only be able to deal with fiction. But sometimes though, fiction is more real than nonfiction. And that is where I build my home. A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis is worth a read. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, we gave them about 10 minutes. There's a handful of us, you know. We have almost half the number of the disciples, and that's good enough for me. So let's kind of dive into it. Oh no. Oh no. 3 of them left. All right, so we have a quarter of the disciple. So like I said, so we'll get started. Today's Jay's birthday, so everyone wish him a happy birthday. Um, and so that's why I'm here because he's with the kids enjoying his birthday, and I said, you know what, I got you, man. And so the just like with a lot of my talks, they start with ideas rattling around in my head, and they often are not connected. And then as other thoughts fade away, the ones that remain, I start to think like, no, maybe they are connected, and I just have to find out the connection. And so the 2 images I had in my head was one is a quote. I believe it's by Samuel Beckett, the playwright. Someone could check that. I'm almost sure. And it was said to me years ago, when I first started to submit my writing to different publications, mostly like short stories. I didn't start like shopping around a novel until earlier this year. So this is like years ago when with short stories, and I would get rejected and everything. My friend Bill, he said to me, fail again, fail better. And from that moment, it was like, and he said it just in an encouragement, like fail again, fail better. Probably even mentioning it, thinking that I would know the reference. But it was like a life changing epiphany that I had. So like fail again, fail better. And that's I hold close to me. A lot of people that know me often do joke that I'm far more comfortable with failure than with success. You know, that kind of that line from The Dark Knight, which I don't really like the movie, sorry. But when the Joker says he's like a dog chasing a card, he wouldn't know what to do with it once he got it. That's kind of how I feel with like success or like winning stuff. I'm far more comfortable like losing and just being like, hey, it was fun while I did it. So having failure, and I don't mean this in like a self-pitying way, but having failure be like a big part of my life, that motto sticks with me. And then the other thought that I had in my mind was what happens to our perception of people when people pass away? Like when they pass away, our perceptions of them change. And that's very interesting to me. And we've all experienced it in our lives, or we've even heard people maybe complain like just because they died, they're not a saint, right? That happens a lot with social media because social media can't allow people to be moved or touched by someone's existence. So if someone has done great things and they pass away, everyone has to just dig up all like the crappy stuff they done, and they put it out there like, how can you like her or him? They've done this, blah 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 blah. And I feel like there was a time where I was like that, very much so. And there's a line by the band Death Cab for Cutie, who are in the news now because they're doing a tour with Postal Service. If you like indie music, it's like a whole big thing. Some like kind of like Taylor Swift-esque Ticketmaster issues with pre-sales, and it's a big thing. So, but they had to have a line in the song Styrofoam Plates in which um I don't think it's autobiographical, but I think the lead singer Ben Gibbard is maybe singing from his friend's point of view, and the friend's dad was an alcoholic and he passed away, and it's just reflections on that. But there's a line in that song that said he was a bastard in life and he's a bastard in death. And so that kind of was a a line that I kind of thought was true. It was like, yeah, just someone doesn't turn into a saint just because they passed away. If they were a bastard in life, then they're a bastard in death too. And um but then having experienced um like loss myself, I see how not true that is. The first person I ever like truly lost in my life was my friend Kate, and this was um what is it going to be, like 16 or 17 years ago now. And to like kind of like glorify her in her tragic passing was easy because she was young, she was great, she was full of life, she was just like vibrant. And she was young, she like died maybe a week before her 21st birthday or something like that. um and so like, yeah, that's easy to look at her and be like, oh, she's a saint, she's amazing, and I still believe that to this day. But then in 2020, my dad passed away, and that's where things kind of got a little rocky and weird because me and my dad did not have like the best relationship. He was always in my life, he wasn't estranged or anything like that. But what happened was, a brief backstory is, my dad, when he was maybe a year or two older than I am now, so he was young, like full of energy, full of life. He ran marathons. I think he ran like 5 marathons. He used to cycle 60 miles on his bike. He used to play golf. He used to do snorkeling, scuba dive, like all that sort of stuff. And then when he was like 42 or so, so I'm 39, right? So it was 42, he got sick just randomly. Nobody knows what it was. It was just some viral infection, and it just like completely like debilitated, like he just couldn't do anything. He was on disability, like his bones started to deteriorate, he lost cartilage in his hip, his vertebrae in his back were fusing together, like it was just just downhill. But the thing is, he stayed alive for another 30 something years. Oh, maybe exactly 30 years. And at first he was very like, no, like power through, and he had such a good mindset, and he was like inspirational to people because like, oh wow, you're still doing as much as you can, you're like, life's not getting you down. It was very much. And then somewhere maybe 10 years into the sickness and things weren't getting any better, basically just depression took over, just completely, and it turned him into somebody that no one recognized. And so you had friends distancing themselves, we have family members getting hurt and they're distancing themselves. We're getting hurt because even though I very much understand depression, I struggle with it. His was at a level that I couldn't and still really can't comprehend, that it just completely blinded him to everything else in his life. Any good, anything that he could still do w- just was not good enough for him because he couldn't do it as well as he could when he was, 40. And this lasted to like when he was like 72, and he was like almost like upset that he couldn't play golf or run marathons. And it's like that, like even if you were healthy, you would have been past that age. And it was just, but he just changed and he turned into very curmudgeon-y. His life was filled with like backwards, like rear view mirror, like mindset. And so like one thing that I would because we had a teasing, joking relationship when we were good. When not, we were like arguing. But other than that, we always us Murrays are very sarcastic, and so we would always like tease each other, and I would give him a hard time because he loved Les Mis, but he would always focus on um who is the character that just like she gets her hair cut, right? Anne Hathaway plays her. Um he liked the movie, but he liked the play, the music from the play more. Is that Fontaine maybe or Cosette or like whoever? But she sings the line that like I used to dream my life would be so much more than this hell that I'm living, and like that was like his mindset. And he just loved that line, and I would tease him. I was like, "Dad, the play is about like forgiveness and grace and mercy and changing your life and turning back your ways." Like Jean Valjean's like an incredible character, and even like Javert has this crazy change of heart, which of course leads to well, I don't, no spoilers, but anyways, in he even in his tragedy has a change of heart. And I would just be like, how are you? That's the message you're getting from Les Mis, is that your life is just hell and it used to not be. Um, and so it does get very grating on you. But then when he died, it like you don't see that anymore. And it's not like a oh, they're a saint now. It's just like you just don't see that stuff anymore. You'll remember it, and me and my mom and my sister will talk about like, oh yeah, remember dad used to get like that. But overall, that's not the focal point anymore. And and then sadly, I've had some other friends in my life just recently. I'm talking about like last week. My best friend lost his dad, just about the same age my dad was. His was very very unexpected. My dad's passing was like a slow train that was coming for a very long time. For like over a year, I was getting calls like, "Oh, go to the hospital. Your dad's there now. He's not going to last." And then he would last for another year and come home, and he was wasting away, like deteriorating, but he was still, but it was just very, the writing was on the wall for a very long time. But my friend John just, he just got a phone call like what or he tried to contact his dad and he couldn't. It was very very tragic. Then my like the head boss at my job just lost his mom 3 days ago. So it is just very surrounding me right now. And so that's what got me thinking of what changes with our perception of people that pass away. I see that with my mom didn't have a great relationship with her dad. Um, and now that he's passed, little things remind her of him, and there's like a fondness there that wasn't around too much in when they were both alive at the same time. And so my mom will think of him fondly. And so I was like, what is that? So I have that idea and the fail again, fail better, just rattling in my head. And I was like, I guess this is what the talk is going to be. We're going to try to marry those ideas. And so what I think happens when someone dies is, in thinking about say my dad, when he was alive and you're dealing with him, you're seeing everything that has brought him to that moment, right? All the pain, the trauma, the regret, it like weighs on them, and it dictates their attitude and their behavior, their interactions. And we all have that. And then when someone passes away, all of that's gone. And the only thing that remains is who they were in their truest sense before all of life just swallowed them up. And what you dealt with was that, like that everything that just clung on them in a metaphysical sense is what you're dealing with when you're both alive. And it drives you crazy because you can't see past that. But when they die, that stuff just melts away and you're just left with who they were. And so your eyes open and you go like, "Oh no, my dad was just like me. He was just a dude. He was just, like." So I'll have moments where I'll have a friend over, and we're sitting in the backyard in the summertime eating food, or I don't really drink, so I'll be drinking like a seltzer or something like that. And he'll just like ask me like, "Oh, like what's going on with your lawn over there?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. It's just something under the ground is ripping up my lawn. It's driving me crazy." And then I'll like stop and like, I've heard my dad have the same conversation with his friends back when I was younger. Like it's just like, no, he was just a regular person. Like it's all of that extra stuff is stripped away, and you're just like, wow, no, he was like just a person, just a guy, and he had feelings and he had fears and he had doubts and he overcompensated and he was insecure and all of that happened. But we can't really see that when people are alive. Like even now in Revolution, we talk about grace and love, and it's kind of what we're going to get to with the fail again, fail better aspect of this talk. Is it's everyone knows how much of a struggle it is to see that inner person when all you could see is that exterior, what life has like molded them into. And so I learned of a Buddhist concept of death, and I wish that I could tell you that I learned it in some scholastic hibbity hoopla, but really it was the show The Good Place, which I cannot recommend enough. I was weary of it because it's a network sitcom type thing. I don't really go for them, but it's just incredible and it's everything that you think it's not going to be. And they talk about this concept, this Buddhist concept of death, in which the character says, "Picture a wave in the ocean, right? It's a wave, and there's a time in that wave's existence in which you can see it, you could measure it. There's volume to it, there's mass to it, there's movement to it. But then eventually the wave crashes on the shore, and all of that is gone. But all that remains is the water that comprised of the like that the wave was made out of." And so that's very similar to the concept that talking about now, obviously because I got it from that. But right, so when someone dies, their wave, their form, their mass, their energy, all of that is gone, but their water still remains, right? Their essence, the impact, their lingering effect and outreach is still there, even though that it doesn't have a physical form anymore. And along this line, because I love movies and everything too. There's a Japanese animated movie called Princess Mononoke. It's by Studio Ghibli, who makes the greatest movies. And if you ever find yourself like, "Oh, I don't really like anime," like it's incredible. So, but Princess Mononoke starts off since it's Japanese. It's very much in the Shinto spirit. So everything, there's like a god in everything, and the movie starts off with this big, massive type of beast, and it's just covered in worms, and it's just gnarly with red eyes, and just it poisons everything it touches. And eventually, this beast becomes a threat. And this is not spoiler. I'm telling you, that happens in the first 5 minutes of the movie. And they put this beast down, and when the beast dies, um, all those worms and everything dissipate, and they see it was just an injured beast, like a warthog type pig. That was a god. It was like a spirit of the forest. But what happens? It was injured, and in that injury, the sickness and anger and hatred overtook him, and that's where all the worms came from. But when it died, and all of that just like dissipated, and all was left that was that core um, creature. And so it has a very similar feel to that, the wave analogy, and that's kind of what it made me think of, was that animated scene and everything just dissipating, and the what's left is what was there. And And that just shows that a little bit of bad over time can fester and change who someone is on the outside. It really and changes our perspective of them. And the book of Ecclesiastes, which we will talk about a little bit, even has a line that says, like, a dead fly in perfume makes the whole thing stink, right? So you have perfume and then you have just this little dead fly, and that little bit ruins everything, right? One bad apple spoils the bunch. Like, it's that same mindset. um and this is taken wildly out of context, but dealing with the books of wisdom and poetry in the Bible, the Song of Solomon, they have a there's a line that says, to not let the catch it to try to catch the foxes that invade the vineyard and destroy the vineyard by eating all the grapes before they have a chance to ripen. And to me, it has a similar concept, is that what we're walking around with, what I'm walking around with, what Zoe's walking around, Zachary, um, you know, William Grimm, like whatever we're walking around with is what's left of our vineyard after the foxes have gotten to it. And then when we pass, all that's going to be left is that, like, pure untouched vineyard of who we actually are. And in the same breath, Paul kind of references, maybe not exactly, but in passing theory, the book of Ecclesiastes, when in Second Corinthians he talks about our lives and our struggle. It's light and momentary pain, which of course to us feels crushing and massive, but in the long run it is light and momentary pain, right? Because everything is short and fleeting. Second Peter, what is, he might be writing a letter to Jude maybe, and um, I don't know if he means this in a literal sense, but makes the comment that 1,000 years is like a day to God, and a day is like 1,000 years. It's just God's time is different, and so to kind of see if I could find a way to emphasize how light and momentary it is, I did the most basic, crude math. Please, if anyone wants to check this, put it in the comments with the correct math. But in theory, so say 1,000 years is like a day to God, right? So one day in God's eyes is 8,760,000 hours, right? But on Earth, my dad's life was 630,720 hours out of 8,760,000. So in God's eyes, like, my dad's life was 15 minutes long or something like that, like 13.8 minutes long. Um, that's light and momentary. It's just, think of 15 minutes in we've already been streaming. In God's point of view, we've already been streaming two of my dad's lifetimes. Like, it's again, my math could be wrong, but I have one of my best friends is studying to be a mortician, mortuary science. And I'm not going to go into any details because if anyone has lost a loved one, you don't want to hear any of this stuff. Um, but in talking to her, we often have the comment, like, how are we alive? Like, we're such, like, crude, fragile creatures. How are we alive? And she's the one that's studying. And she's like, I have no idea. Like, it's just so light and momentary, and we're so fragile. Um, so and all of these factors, I think, is why the passing of a loved one um changes our perspective of things, and it gives us a point of view that we wouldn't be able to have otherwise. um I don't So there's a show, it's now on HBO Max, and it's a very weird thing to mention in, like, a service, but it's called 101 Places to Party Before You Die. And it's a travel show of two comedians. One's from Long Island, woohoo, John Gabris, and then his best friend Adam Pally, who is in a lot of stuff. The first time I ever recognized him was in Iron Man 3. So in my head forever, he's from Iron Man 3, but I think he's from Happy Endings. He's in Sonic 2. But basically, they just go around and they're just like living life and partying in different locations and getting paid to do it. It's the best gig in the world. And it seems shallow at first. But then you learn that one of the reasons why this show is taking place is because John Gabris, one of the comedians, his dad passed away. And what John noticed from that was that his dad had a whole bookshelf of books that he planned to read once he retired and had time to do it. And then he passed before he could. So it's just this bookshelf of all his future plans that just never came to fruition. And that to them was like, wow, life is really short. We need to enjoy ourselves. We need to just go rip it up a little bit. And we'll find similar themes in the book of Ecclesiastes also. But that's just another example of how when everything else is just stripped away, when the wave is gone and it's just the water and all the worms and foxes and everything are gone, like all that's left is just this pure understanding and empathy and grace for the person that passed. And in Colossians 3, I don't really read from the Bible, but like I said, I didn't have that much time to piece this together. Um, so Paul, right? He wrote, yeah, Colossians, right? Um, so verse, in chapter 3, verse 5, he says, so put all evil things out of your life. Then he mentions sexual sinning, doing evil, letting evil thoughts control you, wanting things that are evil, and greed. Just don't get bogged down on those specifics, right? Um, but now also put these things out of your life: anger, bad temper, doing or saying things to hurt others, using evil words when you talk. Do not lie to each other. Um, So, like Paul's saying, and he's talking about in our relationship and studying Jesus's teachings and living that life. That's what he's referring to. Is like put to death all of that stuff. Um. So, always, and then to balance that, so put to death all that stuff and bring life to, um, showing mercy to others. Be kind, humble, gentle, and patient. Get along with each other and forgive each other. If someone does wrong to you, forgive that person because the Lord forgave you. Do all these things, but most important, love each other. Love is what holds you together, right? So, in someone's passing, all of that happens automatically in our mind, right? Um, so when my dad passed, all of his anger and pettiness and arguments that we had, his depression, his skewed outlook, his regrets, all of that got put to death with him. And all that remained was all of that other stuff, was the love that he had, humility he had, the kindness he had, not holding grudges, like because he held grudges in his life, but when he passed, like all that stuff is gone, and all that remains is that, and that all happens automatically when someone passes away. And I think that is why our views change. And it's not that we make saints out of um people that have passed away. It's just that it happens automatically and we can't help but recognize it. So, and again, so with all that, only the water remains. Um, so this is why sometimes when someone dies, you find yourself questioning what you believe in. And I don't mean that in the sense of, oh, I don't believe in God. Maybe some people do. Maybe some people get so hurt by someone passing away um, that they question what they believe. But for me, what it was is like say I never really believed in reincarnation. Um I don't maybe when I was younger and stupider, I maybe scoffed at the idea, but I'm gonna be 40 next year, so we're talking about like something that I probably scoffed at 20 years ago in such a passing thing that I don't remember it. But I wouldn't put it past my younger self, but I just never thought much of it. And I'm sure people listening to this and watching this, if you have had someone that passed away, you might find yourself in a similar situation where you're seeing things that remind you of them or almost seem like a message from them. Um, and it makes you think of like, no, that are they like talking to me from beyond? And part of you wants to scoff at it or say it's just coincidence. But then it gets to a point to me in the fact that it just being a mere coincidence is less likely than it being a miracle. Like it makes less sense for it to be a coincidence. One example, and I swear to you that this is like a true story. I'm not exaggerating it. I wish my wife was here to say it. So it's not that typical thing that pastors do sometime where they like punch up a story a little bit. This is like true as true can be. So my dad's name, who you say was Al? This still is Al, but so his name's Al, right? All growing up, he drove a red sports Jeep Cherokee. Um, I mean, maybe not all, but like high school up through when he couldn't really drive anymore. Kept that thing going, and it was kind of like a pride and joy for him. One of those cars that he trusted, like, oh, it's my faithful car, but you're like, oh, it's really not that good, and it gives you a lot of grief. I don't know why you trust it so much. Um, but the thing about my dad, he loved hawks, like any bird of prey, really, but like hawks, like love them. Like, it's his email address, Hawk Guy, and all this stuff. And one day after he passed, it would have been he passed away in November, so it might have been the spring afterwards. My wife was working upstairs, and I went to just say hi to her because we were both working from home that day. And as we're talking, she's listening to music on shuffle on Spotify, and the song "You Could Call Me Al" by Paul Simon comes on, and so of course it's on shuffle. She loves that song. It's there, right? So, but as she does it, that song's playing. It's maybe been playing for a minute, and I go, "Oh my god, look at that!" And it's a hawk. Like, and hawks do live in this general area. Like, not really. We're not upstate. We're on Long Island, so it's not as frequent as if you lived upstate. I'm like, oh, then I made a joke, kind of like, oh, there's my dad, like, and then I'm not even joking. A red sports Jeep Cherokee Sport, red, same exact look as my dad's Jeep, drove by at that same time. So a hawk flew by, his red Jeep drove by, and a song about his name was playing all at once. And to me, like the odds of that happening coincidentally get to be so like razor thin that it would equal the same as being a miracle of some sort. But stuff like that, would have thought like, oh, my dad talking to me from beyond the grave, or I never would have thought like that when he was still alive about other people that have passed away that I knew that maybe I wasn't as close to. My friend John was telling me that like him and his dad used to talk about like space and meteor showers and all that stuff. And then like the day after his dad died, he witnessed like a bunch of shooting stars and everything's like it's like that's not a coincidence. That can't be a coincidence. And I guess the point might be getting a little muddied, but I'm hoping that you're following a little bit that it's just like how much everything you believe kind of gets rocked and you start to question like I don't know what I don't know, maybe I do believe in this. Like maybe when I see a hawk, and then it happened when so I'll be reading the Bible with that now, and then Jesus will be talking about, oh no, Elijah was here, you guys just didn't recognize him. And then it says like that the Bible, that the disciples knew that he was talking about um Elijah and John, being John the Baptist being Elijah. And growing up before this, I would have thought, oh, he's speaking metaphorically. But now all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, maybe it really is. Maybe he's saying like literally, maybe reincarnation is like a thing. Um, and so I know I'm shooting from the hip here, so I'm hoping that you're following me. We're gonna get to Ecclesiastes soon. I just wanted to kind of like pave the way, and also share that in your grief, if you're finding yourself thinking of these things that maybe you haven't thought of before, that you're not alone, that we're all the same, and we all get rocked in the same way, and our minds change, and we do kind of stop seeing the physical, like the the stuff that was blinding us to who the person really was that we lost, and we're seeing them, and how our minds just change. So now, with the passing of my dad, I don't know if it's just timing wise or anything, but it did kind of spiral me into what I would call like a midlife crisis. But I don't mean like a buy a sports car, cheat on your wife type midlife crisis. I mean a literal, like, all right, my dad died when he was 72. My friend John's dad died when he was 73. I'm 39, John's 40. Like this is like our midlife. Like and then all of a sudden I start to think of, oh, and then I retire at 65, and then so I would get what, 7 years before I die. Like, and so it just spirals, and so it is kind of like a midlife crisis that I've been struggling with. And so when I was preparing this, I was looking, trying to find scriptures on death, and stuff, but I didn't want you're like, oh, wipes the tears away from their eyes. I didn't want the revelations version of death. I didn't even want it to really talk about heaven or an afterlife, because, and I'm not trying to persuade anybody, if that's where you find comfort, that is, like, use it, cling to any comfort you have in losing somebody. I believe, as we showed here, that God's time and our time is different. So what brought me peace with my dad dying is that I felt like when he got to, for lack of a better word, when he got to heaven, when he got to the afterlife, he's not waiting for us. When he gets there, we're all there together, because our earthly time and God's time is different. So if I do truly feel, if you lost somebody, you're together already. On earth, you're waiting to get there, but outside time, if you watch The Good Place, in the Jeremy Bearimy, you guys are together. Um, but it's this looking for Bible mentionings, like mentions of death and how people process it. It's what sent me to Ecclesiastes, and on my iPad, I'm pointing as if it's not off camera, but just pretend there's an iPad there. I have a like the Oxford Study Bible with all like the really interesting footnotes, and it's it's funny because Ecclesiastes, there is a theory that it is kind of like Solomon's midlife crisis. Solomon kind of got very into living a hedonistic life, because he felt that everything was meaningless and pointless, and he just wanted to have a good time and rip it up, kind of similar to what I was saying about 101 Places to Party Before You Die, that show on HBO Max. And when I read it, I was like, "Oh no, it is." That's why I relate to it so much. It has to be that. Um, Maybe, some biblical scholar, like, I love this guy Dan McClellan, I believe. I hope that I'm not butchering his name. I post him on my stories all the time. I think Jay has also. I would love to have a conversation with him here. I'm not too worried about him finding my talk, because it wouldn't be that obvious, but also I don't think he could really rip apart what I'm saying about the Bible, because when he does that to people, they're saying the Bible says this and they're very matter of fact. But my whole stance on the Bible is, I don't know. This is what I read and get from it. So I would never portray it as fact. So I don't think he would really have much to rip apart, because you would just be saying like, oh, this guy that claims to not know anything also doesn't know anything. But his stuff is awesome, and I highly recommend um watching it. Next time I post him in my story, maybe just click and follow it. It'll blow your mind. It's great. So maybe someone of his studying could be like, yeah, that's not from a midlife crisis. But there is a theory in some like academic circles that the book of Ecclesiastes was written after Solomon lost his throne. Like God took away the throne from him towards like the later end of his life. And so the theory is that he's just kind of, this is what's left of him, is, and he's like thinking on his life. And that's why he's seeing like, wow, everything I did was so pointless. Everything is so meaningless. I took so much pride in how wise I was, but it doesn't mean anything. I took so much pride in how rich I was, but it doesn't mean anything. Um, and it actually kind of reminds me of the Coldplay song, Viva La Vida, right? Is that the name of the song? I love the album. I just can't remember if that's the name of the song or and the album. But if you listen to that song, it's very similar to, it's about a king that like loses his throne and he's just wandering around the streets, like reflecting on it. And that's really what reminds me of the book of Ecclesiastes. So like I said, Ecclesiastes to me is like my Galatians, and because I just love it. I could see myself like almost every talk like using this book. Um and a lot of the stuff is really um I don't know if there's really answers in it, or if the writer, it seems that it's King Solomon's words, but I don't know if he wrote it. It might just be somebody saying like, "Oh, these are the lessons that I learned from Solomon." So the speaker gives some really interesting like thoughts out there, such as in death, that's when, like I was saying, all of that stuff gets stripped away, and what's left is your core essence and your who you really are. Almost like your name is memorialized, who you are is memorialized. So the speaker is saying, is that better than being born then, right? Because when you're born you have nothing, but when you're died, like that is who you are. So in that sense, is a funeral even better than a wedding? And that kind of like got me thinking. I always like this lyric by this band named Dawes. I believe the song is "When My Time Comes," which is really great. But the lead singer says, "If heaven was all that was promised to me, why shouldn't I just pray for death?" Because it's that kind of teaching that I feel like we get in a lot of churches and circles, in which everyone seems to be living for this afterlife and ignoring their time on earth, or like treating it so poorly. Like we're almost like kind of what Jay has talked about with Jesus says that they'll know us by our love, but then we're over here hating and judging and and everything, all in hopes of an afterlife in which we'll be rewarded for it. But it's like, well, if that's so great, why don't we just pray for death? Why are we wasting all this time here on earth? And But the interesting thing that I found about the book of Ecclesiastes is it's very, as much as I agree with it, it also challenges me, because it's the anti me and how I get when I'm depressed. I've shared with you, I kind of have, I don't say this with pride, it's just I'm being honest with you, that this outlook that I tend to have in life is taken from the book No Country for Old Men. And I do feel that maybe taking life lessons from Cormac McCarthy is a dangerous tightrope that I do walk, because he's not the most positive person. But in the in the book and the movie, because they're almost identical. You have the main bad guy, and he's sitting across from somebody, and he's got a gun pointed at them, and he asks them, he goes, if everything that you followed in your life, all the principles that you believed in, led you to this point where you're on the other side of my gun, what good was it? What, it was useless. What good was it? And so, in my mental states that I get to, I do find that I get very nihilistic, which I've shared with you guys. When I'm just like, what's the point? None of it matters. You could be a great person and people still won't trust you, or they'll still treat you like terribly. And so, where this challenges me, where the book of Ecclesiastes challenges me, is he seems to find hope in the meaningless. He it tells people like enjoy life, and it's like one of the, if you follow my Instagram, it's one of the out of context quotes that I put when he is just basically like, so enjoy your useless life with your wife and enjoy your meaningless existence. But he's like not being biting and sarcastic, at least the way I look at it. He's literally saying like it doesn't mean anything. So just like give it meaning. Like have like just live your life and enjoy it. Um because death is the great equalizer, right? It's the great common denominator that we all have, is we're all just breath, and one day that breath will stop, and to dust will return. So we have to enjoy life, and these are lessons that we could get out of the passing of loved ones, right? That's again back to the 101 places to party before you die. That spurred because he looked at his dad's bookshelf and he was like, I need to live life, I need to do it, like, because this is fleeting and useless and meaningless, so what am I not living it up for? And in the book of Ecclesiastes there's a great line and he says, a live dog is better than a dead lion, is it not? And so I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. This is where my notes have run out because I had to sign on to do this talk. So right now it's just like bullet points, and it's been almost an hour of me rambling and talking in circles and probably not making much sense. But one kind of interesting thing that I learned in actually from that one biblical scholar that I mentioned earlier is in the book of Genesis there are two creation accounts, and I never looked at it like that because I didn't know the scholarship behind it. I always looked at, in the beginning, like God created on day one, boom, 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 day six, man, and done. And then I thought in chapter 2, I believe it is, that it just goes into more detail of those days. Like it extrapolates them more. But apparently that is not the case. Apparently it is a different creation story in which God is acting more like a creator going through trial and error. And that's kind of how we get Eve, right? Because he makes Adam and then is like, no, all right. So I made this man to like take care of everything, but he needs help. And so that's kind of like, and here, is this gonna help? And Adam's like, that's a bird. That's not really gonna help. He's like, that's a cat. It's cute and I love it, but it's not gonna help. And so that's how like almost seemingly how all the creatures of the earth and land and sea and sky get created. And then God's like, all right, so none of that did the trick. And then he's like, oh, I'll just make someone from him. And that's where I'm going to leave that because I don't want to get into dominion over hibbity hoopla and all that stuff. And that seems to get abused so that men can be like, no, submit to me and all that nonsense. But the reason that I bring that up is because I learned that the book of Genesis also, just from what I read in my in the Oxford Study Bible, is it seems to have a bunch of authors, and it was almost like a collection of written and oral stories from just generations, and that's why you get different creation stories, because some were, oh, it was this, and some were like, no, it wasn't just boom, boom, boom. It was God was trying all this stuff, and it gets passed down through generations and collected, and that's how you get the book of Genesis. And there's a few other aspects in that book that are seemingly conflicting, unless you look at it from that point of view. And so thinking of that type of mindset when I'm reading Ecclesiastes, I'm seeing like, oh, that is also the God that this person is seeing, is a God that isn't doing like day one, boom, day two, boom, day three, but more of a trial and error. And he even gets to a point of saying, like, with the way that God is running things, we can't make any sense of it. None of it makes sense. It's all meaningless. It's all useless. And that I feel like, you take that kind of midlife crisis slash depression soaked person that lost his throne, and he's just in the city that he used to run, and he's walking around, and in his mind the God that he grew up with was someone that was like, and try this, no, this is very good, this is good, oh, I regret making that. And so he's just kind of like, that's why good people die young and wicked people live for a long time, because we can't make any sense out of any of this. um and for him to be able to find hope in that is really like inspiring to me, that he could be like, no, everything sucks, everything is meaningless, and everything is pointless. So like, just be happy, just love who you love your family, spend time with it, like, you know, spend time with your partner and your useless existence in this useless world, and just make the best out of it. And I think that's really um powerful and nice. And so to bring up the again, my original idea of fail again, fail better, I didn't forget about it, is in the book of Ecclesiastes, the teacher even um suggests failing, like basically saying that, the people that are overly self-righteous and strive to be perfect, um it just leads to self-destruction. So make mistakes, fail, and fail again, and fail better. He doesn't say that, that's just me tying it all in. Um and so that is something that we experience in our lives, and I just want to emphasize to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, because showing love and mercy and grace to people, I believe, just as Jay believes, that is the way to do things. And when we fail at that, it is not a failure in the system. It's not a loophole to find an exploit of, no, I love everybody, but this person sucks and I hate them and screw them. That's not how it works. It's not a pick and choose. When you hear me go on a rant and I cannot show any compassion and grace for certain politicians, it's a failure on my part. It's not, I'm not justified in doing it. There's no rationale to support me showing love and mercy to everybody except for the people that I don't like. It is me failing at grace and mercy. But don't take that as like, no, what? No, I already screwed it up. So forget it. I'm just going to throw it all away and go back to my old ways and judge everybody. It's like, no, you failed and you will fail again. But the next time you do, you'll be better at it and you won't fail as hard. You'll be one step further ahead. So fail again and fail better. Yeah, you didn't show grace and mercy. Yeah, you lost your temper when you should be embracing them. Um, Zoe shared a great story when they gave their talk of there was just this hateful man in downtown, in his in sorry, in their town in Canada. And um Zoe wanted to show mercy and um grace, but all they did is they kind of, oh, see you, Zoe, I love you, and I'm stealing your story to make my point. And they um did not show the love and grace and mercy that they wanted to. And some good came out of it in the sense of it got the hateful person to stop spewing hate for 40 minutes or so. But as we know from knowing and loving Zoe, and as we've heard from me and Jay on Zoe's character, it's like that was a momentary failure of Zoe on Zoe's part. But Zoe didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Then next time that they'll fail again, they'll fail better. And that's how many stories do we have like that? And so that's where it comes in is everything is useless and meaningless and everything sucks, but that's also a great thing. And that means we should just make the most out of it and love life and do our best to be good and show love and show grace and show mercy. And when we fail, to not give up and to try again. And the next time we will fail better. And in doing so, I could go back to No Country for Old Men to wrap this up, because in learning these lessons from people that have passed away, and we could see who they really are and how it moves us, and all of a sudden we learn empathy and grace and understanding, and we learn how to walk in someone's shoes. It is someone wrote that their mom says life sucks and then you die. It kind of is true, but that doesn't mean that we have to suck the whole time and be miserable. And this is something I'm struggling with. So it's not like I'm not talking to you from a place of being beyond it. I'm in the chat with you guys hearing me talk to it. I'm talking to myself right now. And so if we could use the loss and of our loved ones and seeing and learning, like I said, that empathy and understanding and grace and walking in their shoes, it reminds me of a scene in No Country for Old Men in which the main character shares a dream that they have. And it's probably my favorite thing that's ever been written in the history of literature. Is they share this dream with their wife, and in their dream, the character sees his dad, and it's dark and it's cold, and he sees his dad on horseback, and his dad's carrying a horn, and in that horn is fire. Because that's in olden times you used to make a fire, and they had a way at when there were moving camps, they would take the coals and stuff so they wouldn't have to keep creating a fire. They would carry it with them and then use that. And he said that he knew that he said, my dad, he just walked on past. He didn't say anything. He just kept walking, just walked on past. But I knew that he was going out into the darkness and into the cold, and he was going to make a place for me. And I knew that when I got there, he would be there. And then I woke up. All right. So that's kind of what I'm saying. If we could use those lessons that we're learning in our changed view of when someone passes away, it is no different than them leading the way for us to show us the path, to teach us how to fail and fail again and fail better until we get to where they're leading us. And they'll be waiting for us, and they'll be carrying the fire, and there'll be warmth and light. And so that's my conclusion. There's no better way to conclude that than stealing from Cormac McCarthy, like the smartest writer on the planet. So, yeah, this was a bit of a struggle. Like I said, that literally I ran out of time to even make my notes, so I was flying a little bit fast and loose, but I hope you guys were able to follow it and understand what I was saying. Because you're definitely not alone if you're going through all this grief and loss. And if you're ever feeling in your midlife crisis or everything sucks and life sucks and then you die, it's like, yeah, no, the Bible says that. Life says life sucks and then you die. But it's better to be a living dog than a dead lion. So so just live and love and find happiness when you can and use these lessons. So Everyone, you're very, very, very welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Um, I will try to get this talk up as fast as possible. Normally they go up on Tuesdays, but my company that I work for closes between Christmas and New Year. So the last week of the year is just nonstop like chaos for me. So I might try to just grind it out and get it up as quick as I can because I won't have time this week. So I'll see. But yeah, if you can, I normally am very bad at sharing about donating, but if you can, Jay shared a little bit about the passing of our financial guy. We have been getting some money from very generous, donations from everyone that's listening. So if you can, we tried to make it as easy as possible. You just go to, the revolutionchurch.com, click on donate, and it should be there. The main reason why I'm pushing it now is because it's tax deductible, so get it in on this calendar year. Anything helps, really. We do sincerely have plans for revolution, and we want to be able to execute them. It does keep flip-flopping of, can we keep this going? I say we because I'm helping Jay out, but it's really his baby, so we want to try to keep it going because it's really important stuff. And I do believe that it's getting like it focuses on a lot of the stuff that other churches gloss over for the sake of dogma or agenda or something. And I'm not saying it's malicious when they do that. I think that's what they believe in. And I think that this is very important work and we would like to keep it going. So any little bit helps. So if you could donate, that would be great. I would love to stick around and talk to chat, but my wife's Christmas concert starts in less than an hour and I think it's a half hour away. So I do have to leave. But thank you so much. I hope this was good and made sense. And we will, you know what? I can't say what's going on next week because I really do not know because it's the day after Christmas. So I'm sure there'll be messages online about service. So thank you all. And we will talk again soon. And I will see you guys online. You're the best. I don't even know how to end this, so I'm going to just end it now with the sign off. Thank you, everybody, and have a great holiday season, right? Christmas is in a week, less than a week. I think Hanukkah starts today, maybe. So everybody, and there's other holidays that I do not know the dates enough to say, but everyone just have a wonderful holiday season. Be safe, love each other, love yourself, and try to continue to find joy in our meaningless existence. And I say that in a good way. So thank you so much, and we will talk later. Bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. To make your 100% tax-deductible donation today, please visit revolutionchurch.com/donate. You can also learn more by clicking the donate section on the website.